started here tonight. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mike Schindler. I'm part of the Kimball Clean Water Association. It is a nonprofit that started because we had an outside influence coming in that a couple of us got concerned about. The board members that we have part of this nonprofit organization is Troy Hilskin, Justin Christensen, Dan Wittenberg, Bob Stein, and we've also had a lot of help from Joel and Robin Haslund and Keith Markworth. We knew about this probably about a month and a half ago. We started doing the research on it. And all of us came together, and obviously everybody here got a mailer that had some facts on it. The one thing I do want to say, there's a lot of propaganda out there about hog CAFOs. What we put on the mailer is backed up by university studies. What we're going to show you tonight has come a lot from university studies, and we have a speaker here tonight that has dealt with this for over 20 years that can testify to the information we put out there. If you type in the benefits of a hog CAFO, it's scary what pops up on your internet browser. I mean, there's not many benefits. We started with about a meeting of about 15 people at RRR that were concerned, and we got it going there. We were able to get enough money to pay the postage on the mailer that we sent out to 2,900 people, and we got a lot of them here tonight. We are here to stay. We're committed to the quality of life for Main Prairie Township and the surrounding community. What we're going to show you is going to show the sensitivity of our area. And until we started doing research on it, I didn't know. And I grew up here, on County Road 146, and I had no clue how sensitive this area is. Before we get going too far, at 3 o'clock today, I got a call from Mark Bromanshenkel, who is the Stearns County Commissioner. And he notified me that his agenda for June 16th, he is the commissioner that sits on the Planning and Commission Committee. Their agenda got lighter because Caesar Larson pulled his conditional use permit. Woo! That does not mean that the fight is over because he can reapply at any time. It just means that the process starts all over for him if he does apply. But for right now, his permit has been pulled. I didn't believe Mark. I thought he was playing with me. So we called the Environmental Services Department at Stearns County, and they confirmed it. And I do have an email that Mark received, letting them know that Caesar Larson wrote a letter and signed it, pulling his conditional use permit. So I still think it's important that we move forward. It basically means we've got more time to gather more information to make sure that our water quality and our lives don't get extremely affected. So why are we a nonprofit organization? It's all legal. It gives the board of directors some security from lawsuits. It protects us a little bit so that he can't come after us personally. That's the whole reason we went to a nonprofit organization and classified as that. We do have an account set up at the Kimball Bank. because we did, we've been in contact with a lawyer out of Glenwood, Minnesota that has taken on CAFOs before. We did employ him. We have costs there. We're hoping that people will make donations to divert the costs from all of us. Here's the reason we're here tonight. Caesar Larson, he's from Amboy, Minnesota. He applied for a conditional use permit for Main Prairie Township. Everybody knows where the Great Big Bins are. It was just a little bit of ways away from that. The permit was for 2,460 sows. It was a gestation farrowing barn. That is going to be important to know. In a couple of slides here, we'll show you the odor emissions from that compared to anything that we have here. There's a big difference. With that amount of sows, you can produce 40,000 to 60,000 piglets a year, which means at any given time that barn would hose about 3,000 to 5,000 pigs every day. The piglets do get shipped out, but it's a continuous cycle. The process for a conditional use permit, there's 3 meetings that it has to go to get approved. The first meeting is the feedlot review committee. I don't even know why Stearns County has this. It was very disappointing to go to. It was held on May 25th. There were 2 permits for hogs, for a hog CAFO. One was 100 animal units, and a pig is a 0.4 of an animal unit, so you do the math. A cow is 1 animal unit, a pig is 0.4. So it is a little bit smaller than this one. It's going up in Melrose. That one passed through this board without any question and in about 10 minutes. There was no questions asked on it or not. A couple of us did go to that meeting, and on the conditional use permit that Mr. Larson went for, there was about a 45-minute discussion on it. The board members had concerns about the soil type, and there's no doubt about it. He met the setbacks from wells and stuff, but he didn't meet the setback from our groundwater. But there is no ordinance in place for our groundwater. Then you have the Planning Commission, which they review everything, and that's basically the public hearing. That is where we could have went up there and voiced our concerns. You could write letters to them, and all of that would get put on record. And then they vote on it to send it to the Stearns County Commissioners, and they give their recommendations. They can put conditions on the permit, but my understanding is they get regulated but not policed, which you can put a lot of conditions on something. I'm supposed to drive 55 when I go to work every day. I guarantee that doesn't happen. The feedlot review committee, like I said, they did end up voting to move it on to the planning commission, but it was a 6-to-1 vote. It did take them 45 minutes. It was good that they at least had some concerns, or they brought up concerns. We were able to talk to one member at a different meeting and bring our concerns to him, and he was the one that voted against it. The rest of them just didn't care. The Planning and Zoning Commission meeting was supposed to take place on June 16th. Like I said, he pulled his permit, so there is no more public hearing. But to say we are not going to have to rally again, if he applies again, we're going to need help. And we want to fill that room with as many people as we can to voice our concerns. Because normally when you have a room full like this, they are going to limit everybody to a couple of minutes. And with all the concerns we have, there's no way you get everything in there in a couple of minutes. The Stearns County Commissioners, we did talk to 4 out of the 5. The 5th person that we couldn't get a hold of was Lee Lensmeyer, and he's actually the Fairhaven Township Commissioner. We could not get a hold of him. Don't know why. Obviously, we couldn't contact him. He wasn't available. But we did talk to everybody else. We took them on a tour of our concerns. We've got 3 lakes in this area that could have been really affected by it. We got good feedback, and a lot of them just came out and took a look at our concerns. At least they listened to us. And they did steer us into the right direction of certain people to talk to. That did help us out. What we've done, we made 3-ring binders. We've got more paper into this project than a lot of stuff. And all the commissioners did get one besides Lee Lensmeyer. And then we did make it up for the Planning Commission, and we're just in the process of delivering them. We did go to all of the what do you call them, boards, the May Prairie Townships, the Clearwater Watershed. City of St. Augusta is concerned. The aquifer that this would have affected goes from Beaver Lake all the way to Kimball. And the City of St. Augusta is putting in 2 wells by, that's 141, correct? By 141, and they're going to pipe the water into St. Augusta. They can't go anywhere else because their land is already contaminated by a landfill, and they don't have any water, so they're taking ours. We went to the city of Kimball and Kimball schools. And when we first started this process, we wanted, first off, an EAW, an environmental assessment worksheet done. And basically what that does, it pulls up the concerns or the possibility of affecting the area. And what that does is, if there's questions or concerns on that, you go to the Environmental Quality Board. They have to post it there, then you can do your concerns on that. And then if there's questions that worksheet doesn't address, you can ask it there, and they have to come back with an answer on it. If, based off of that worksheet, they feel an environmental impact study has to be done, it triggers an environmental impact study. It's a very expensive process for one of them to be done. They can be anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000, and it can take 2 to 3 years to get that study done. But it gets the DNR, it gets the Minnesota Pollution Control, the EPA, it gets everything involved, and then you can find out what it's going to affect. And my personal stance on it was, if they would come in and do that and tell me it's not going to affect me at all, I'm going to live with some smell, and I'm going to be able to kiss pigs in the morning when I wake up. But in 2008, the legislature took away the right to petition for an EAW. Before 2008, you could get 100 signatures on a petition, and it would trigger an EAW to be done. Legislature said, nope, that's not right. We're going to take that away. You can't petition for an EAW. It used to be where the regulatory government unit could call for a discretionary EAW. In 2013, they took that away from the governing body of where the CAFO was going in. So the rules as it states right now, the only way that EAW gets done is if you have 1,000 animal units or more. So basically you have to have 4,000 pigs or 1,000 cattle, whatever, before an EAW will be done. That's the only thing that triggers it, and that is probably part of the reason that this was under that 1,000. It was at 984 animal units. Here's the proposed site that it was going to go. This was taken on the top of Powder Ridge. This tree line, compared to where that site is, and you'll see it in a couple of slides, is only 1,100 feet. Right there is a resident right now. Right here's the grain bins. So you can see Lake Murray is right here. Carnelian is just outside of this picture, and school section is right over here. It is going to be basically in the center of 3 lakes. From the research that our Army has done, we found, and this is the picture off the mailer, that's the area that gets affected. And you can see it goes well into Kimball, it goes into Fairhaven. It's a pretty big area that can get affected by it. And it's scary of the stuff that can actually travel, but to know if it's propaganda or not, they're just starting to understand what these big CAFOs can do. They're just getting started on research on them. Here is what was submitted to the Stearns County, and where I said that tree line was 1120, that's where his building was going to be from the proposed site. I've lived in our place now for 3 years. I dealt with the winters out there, and with the wind coming off that prairie, I know that 4 rows of trees aren't going to stop it. But this is what he proposed. He is going to have the gestation barn, the farrowing barn. He was going to have a 50 by 80 compost building, 2 wells.
This is an existing hog barn. This barn here probably holds 300 to 400 hogs. It's a cousin of mine. Compare that, you can put his whole farm inside one of them buildings, and I don't think we'll still fill it.
I think Bob had the math figured out. Those 2 buildings alone right there, just to put it in a term that we can all understand, was 2.5 football fields. And they have manure pits underneath them.
2.5 acres. It's 2.5 acres under roof.
2.5 acres. And one of them had a 10-foot pit underneath it, and I will say the mailer did say that both of them had a 10-foot pit underneath it. After that mailer was printed, he did change and resubmitted to the county that underneath the farrowing barn, that was going to be a 2-foot deep pit that drains into the big 10-foot pit. So on the mailer, it does say that there was going to be a potential for 7 million gallons of manure based on volume. That's what those pits can hold. That did drop down to 4 or 5 million gallons, still a lot of gallons. This again is what he sent to the Stearns County as far as his manure management plan. So those were the fields that he was going to spread his manure on twice a year, is what the permit said. Right here, the dark area right there is Lake Carnelian. This is 150th, and all of this land kind of drains right into school section. If you take a look at the contour of the land, it would go right into school section. But that right here is the grain bin site. So,
Can I ask a quick question?
yeah,
Do you know how many acres was?
there was five, this right here is 580 acres. But the building site was gonna take 10 of that, so he had 570 acres.
That's all he had on the north side?
That's all he had on his manure management plan.
And they passed that?
According to Stearns County, he could put 5,700 gallons on per acre per year. So if you do the math on that, he actually, he had enough land.
Let's just clarify something about manure. This is not the manure that many of us grew up, you know, with the 6-time pitchfork. This manure, the hog feed, shell corn is ground before it's fed to the hogs. Probably the largest piece of corn would be 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/3 of an inch before it's ingested. When it comes out the other end, there's nothing there in terms of structure, no straw, no, length to the particulate. It's really a liquid, and that's the type of manure we're talking about. Is plus they add a lot of water. They're washing the farrowing creeks, and the pigs live on metal slats. So when they defecate, the urine and feces fall through these metal slats, and they spray those down. So this is different manure than many of you probably grew up with. This is pure liquid. And so in terms of speaking of gallons, that's the appropriate measurement. So I just wanted to clarify.
The other thing that they do, the state of Minnesota does say that you have to knife in that manure. And when they knife that in, they knife it in about, 6-8 inches of, I'm not sure on that, but they knife that in, and it's supposed to control smell. But in a couple of slides here, I'm going to show you how sensitive our soil is that they knifed it in, or that they would be knifing it into. It would go straight down.
So how did they acquire the land that they're going to spread the manure on?
This good question. Caesar Larson applied for the permit. He doesn't own anything up here. The grain bins are owned by Thompson Insurance, which is a company of Caesar Larson's. So there's nothing up here under Caesar Larson's name. You can go to Stearns County and find this out. The land, the 580 acres that he was going to apply it on, is owned by R.D. Offit. Better known as RDO. They own a bunch of John Deere dealerships, huge potato farmers up in the North Dakota, northern Minnesota area. That is who owns the land. There had been rumors that Wakefield Pork was going to supply the pigs. So we weren't talking about a local farmer just growing his business. We're talking about 3 huge entities that were going to come in and destroy it. I mean, they had no interest in Kimball at all, besides...
They own the land now,
Who?
the people that want to build.
No. R.D. Offit owns the land now.
Should we just do just a brief history on the land? A Hurley common family put together Stein property, which is these two, let's see, yes, this 40 and everything from here up to about here. And then this was Hinkemeyer, and way up there was Hilskin. Okay. And anyway, so that was done. And then in 2011, Caesar Larson, under the name of Thompson Insurance, which I'm told, and I haven't verified this, I don't know if it's true, is his mother's corporation. But Thompson Insurance purchased that 580 acres for $3.1 million, somewhere between $3 million and $3.1 million. That was 2011. The first thing that happened was every tree, every fence post, every building was destroyed. They turned it into a pool table. This was a very beautiful historic farm site here. Bob Stein's grandfather, or great-grandfather maybe? Grandfather lived there. And so all the fences came out, all the trees, all the buildings. In fact, if you bring that up on a Google map, the backhoe, the satellite flew over when the backhoe was there. It was amazing to see that picture. So that was 2011, and then he paid to have three-phase electricity brought in from Highway 15 to here, put in this massive grain bin complex, which is 250,000 bushel of storage. And then I'll come back to that point. December 31st, 2015, the title changed again from one corporation to another. That's when it was sold to R.D. Offutt Companies, and the price was $3.8 million. Now, that $3.8 million did not include 10 acres here where the grain bins are. So the price went up by $700,000, and they excluded 10 acres. Offutt got the benefit of the three-phase power, and how many irrigators were replaced out there? Just two, okay. 2 new irrigators. There's a total of how many irrigators? 5? 7? Okay. So that's the history of the land. One corporation to another corporation. The current corporation is domiciled in North Dakota. And, oh yes, and then the grain bins at 250,000, that's at least twice as large as what would be appropriately sized for those 500 acres. They would have to have, yields of 500 bushels per acre to fill those grain bins. So you could conclude that he desires to own additional significant acreage and in order to utilize the grain bins that he put there. And furthermore, they're growing potatoes, peas, sweet corn, and if you rotate crops that way, you probably need 3,000 to 4,000 acres really to utilize his investment in the grain bins. So there are very large plans looming in this person's mind in terms of acquiring other property. That or he just likes large grain bins, I'm not sure which.
So basically you're saying they've already acquired all this?
The question was that he already acquired this. What is highlighted in yellow on this PowerPoint is what RDO owns.
And with that, should this go through, all the other property values should probably fall, correct? So they'll be able to buy this other land for a song and really do whatever they please.
The statement was that the property values would drop and he'd be able to buy the surrounding stuff for cheap. There are studies that suggest that, yes. Yep.
I would like to clarify that though. The studies point to residential property being hit very hard by a hog facility. Bare agricultural land, the studies show, is typically not impacted. So it depends on what neighboring property you're talking about. Clearly, there's a lot of residential, very beautiful homes in the area. Those would be hurt very badly. This is all vacant ag land up in here. And if he did buy a neighboring farm, the backhoe would come and the house would be destroyed and the trees and everything. So anyway, there's two sides of that, two ways to answer that question.
Here's what our main concerns were as a board. Our first concern was contamination to our groundwater and to the surface water. Like I said, the aquifer right now runs from Beaver Lake to Kimball. The 3 lakes that this would have been put in the center of are Carnelian, Lake Murray, and School Section. All of those lakes are spring-fed lakes. Then we have property values, air quality, the commercial traffic that would be taking place, and the possibility for expansion. This is a map from 2007 from the Stearns County Water Management Plan. Back in 2007, the square right here is his manure application plan and the site. Back in 2007, they said it's a high sensitivity to pollution. The groundwater system is. Based off of the Minnesota Department of Health, that same location in 2013 moved up to a very high risk. The nitrate in that same area, the probability ranking is high. Why is that important? Because in the 2008 to 2017 Stearns County Water Management Plan, in order for contamination to go from the surface to 50 feet below the surface, in the type of soil that we're in, it takes hours to months. Where in good soil, it should take decades to centuries. That is huge. When I read that, I'm like, we got him. But I never knew that, and I grew up in this area for a long time, that it was that type of soil, and I guess I never had a reason to check in on that.
I got something to add. School Section Lake, the elevation is 1,131 feet. Where his buildings are going to go is 1,160. It's 29 feet to our water table. If he puts in a 10-foot pit, that's about 13 feet from our drinking water if that pit was to leak.
Scary. John Lake Stein from the MPCA had a good comment. Groundwater is one of our most precious resources. This report he's referring to the groundwater protection recommendations. Is another warning indicator about our water quality challenges. We know that prevention is key. It costs between 10 to 30 times more to fix contaminated groundwater than to prevent contamination in the first place. That's why we're here, is to prevent our water from being contaminated.
I have a question. It shouldn't be surprising that our groundwater is so sensitive to contamination because of the glaciation that took place, thousands and thousands of years ago. So being that we're in such a sensitive area, would that not kind of override the 2008 legislature decision that, these EAWs, can only be performed under certain circumstances now? Wouldn't that kind of override that because they want to put it into such a sensitive area?
The question is being that we just seen some slides that we're in a sensitive area, does that override the 2008 legislation that took away the EAW rights? The question is, if you are in a sensitive area, an EAW is required. According to the state definitions of a sensitive area, we're not considered a sensitive area. A sensitive area has to be where there's caves, there's floodplains, sinkholes, stuff like that. The headwaters of the Mississippi River, I think, is actually listed on there. But the definition of the state of a sensitive area, this does not fall underneath it. So it took that, we tried that avenue.
Just to add to that,
mean, if you look at the way the laws are written in the state of Minnesota right now, they are definitely pro-ag. So, and we're not against ag at all, but some of these types of operations are definitely detrimental to, you know, our living, our quality of life.
Just remember, elections are coming up.
Our second concern was property value. I live 2,900 feet from this proposed site, and the numbers that were put on the mailer came from the University of Northern Iowa study, and Iowa has been pig central for years. They have the same amount of pigs in Iowa today as they had in 1980. It's just now they're more concentrated, and they're in these big CAFOs. I could read all this to you, but there is studies done that it affects. Matter of fact, even this study states, more research is done because within 2 miles, there's not enough home sales. Basically because they don't know if they're not selling, or the buyer or the sellers aren't willing to take that big of a hit. And there's several studies out there on this. Iowa, I have to assume they kind of know what they're talking about because they're it for pig farmers. The air quality. This shows you, this is right off the University of Minnesota website. This is one table in, I think it's 3 or 4 tables that gets used to do a huge calculation. I could have put that on here, but I think this is going to kind of put some things in perspective. This is a number that you have to take times the pit, and there's other numbers in there. We're a beef and dairy area. The odor emissions from a beef and dairy operation are a 4 and a 6. Off of poultry even, it is a 2. Off of what was being proposed to go in is a 50 based off of the type of pit that he had, and then his farrowing barn was a 14. So you add them together, you got 64. Even our biggest pig farmer in May Prairie right now is half of that. So the smell that would come off this place is 2 times if you take the same animal units, but this place was going to be bigger by 100 animal units than what's already in place. So it would have smelled. Duke University did a study, and they're saying that noxious gases have been detected 4 miles downwind that are as intense than being at the lagoon. That's 4 miles. Everybody in this area would have been affected. The Michigan Department of Health, unsolicited people started calling up with physical symptoms, breathing difficulties, burning sensations, sleep problems. Studies show the stress level of people living next to these go up because obviously you're pissed. The commercial traffic, additional commercial traffic that would be placed on our roads. Our roads right now, I don't know how many people have driven down 150th Street. It's enough for one semi to drive down. Gets scary when you do meet a semi. You pull over quite a ways. It's a 9-ton road when restrictions are lifted. Otherwise, it's a 7-ton road. And the dirt roads in that area are 5-ton roads. I had a great conversation with Mr. Larson for about an hour and a half, and I found out that he was going to truck his feed in from Albany, Minnesota. With 396 sows farrowing at one time every month. They take the piglets and they ship them somewhere. And I think, Dan, what'd you say, 300 trucks?
Currently, yeah, without any hog operation.
Currently, just to take the corn out of the bins that he has, there's 300 trucks traveling on these roads right now. And when they were doing potatoes, they had the trucks lined right up on 150th. If you travel it, you basically had to go in the ditch to get around his trucks. When he was harvesting potatoes out of there, they set it up right on the road. And our roads, it's not designed. There's studies out there that say the best roads to build these on are a 10-ton road. I don't know much about roads, but I know that road's not set up to handle that. The expansion part of it. How big will it get? We don't know. That's the scary part. Once they start, if you tell the county it's a phasing operation, it automatically puts it into that EAW study because you have the potential to go into above the 1,000 animal units. He applied for 984 animal units. Larson, that I know of, has 6 different businesses. I know RDO has about 16 different businesses that they could have applied for another permit under. And now it's up to one person working at Stearns County to say, you know what, wait a minute, these two have got to be connected in order to be called a phased operation. You're depending on a human to detect that if they apply for it 2 years from now, the same person that did this permit might not be there. Iowa didn't think these hog CAFOs would get as big as it has. North Carolina, if you look on the internet about North Carolina, those poor people. And I do suggest, you guys can all say I'm full of shit, go out and do your own research. I've been doing it for the last month and a half. It is scary. There's no other word about it, but North Carolina's got some serious issues. And southern Minnesota, I mean, down in, out by Kirkhoven and stuff like that, as close as that, they've got issues. Why would we think it'd stay small? Research is going to tell you that CAFOs are not it's not a smart business plan. If they would not get subsidies, they would not run. They get subsidies on their feed, that brings their costs down. It's not a viable business plan. Here's what we're asking of you. We need a petition signed. This is based on going to the county to get a complete denial of the CAFO. We've got to switch gears now that he pulled his application. Right now is a great time to get our township board to get stuff in place to where we don't have to fight this at the county level. The township has the power in Minnesota, which is actually great. Minnesota's more strict than Iowa is. In Minnesota, the state sets the rules. But Minnesota says the counties have to follow those rules or they can be more strict. And then the townships have to follow those rules or they can be more strict. We're in a perfect situation right now to be more strict. But we are definitely a farming community. How do you get more strict without hurting the farmers we have in place today? We don't know.
Mike, doesn't that require a moratorium, which
No, it doesn't. There's a moratorium stops things for 1 calendar year. That's as long as the moratorium lasts. Within that year is when they have the option to take a look at some ordinances to put in place to make sure an operation like this doesn't come in. It could be an ordinance saying that if you're above 300 animal units, an EAW has to be done. I have not done a lot of research on the type of stuff, but our lawyer has worked with other townships and counties with ordinances. Like I said, now we're switching gears. We were focused on the denial of this conditional use permit. Now we'll be working on making sure we're not affecting the people that live here, that drink the same water I drink, that play on the same lakes that I play on. And they're going to see me in church. They're going to see me at the restaurant. So if they're doing something wrong, I can go up to them and say, hey, what the hell are you doing? This guy's 3-4 hours away. He's going to come up here when there's a major problem. That's my biggest concern. It's not going to be where he's going to be up here daily checking in with me to say, what can I do? He's going to come up here. If I call him, I'm sure he'd come because he doesn't want an issue, but that's just one thing we have to do now, is come up with a plan. How do we get the township to put something in place to not affect or hurt anybody that's in place right now? That's not our goal.
Say, Mike, I think for part of our presentation, we were going to ask everybody to send a letter in to the commissioners, right?
Yep.
Would we want that to change now to send it to the Main Prairie Township members, sending a letter just stating our requests?
So what we're asking, or what we were going to ask everybody to do now, because like I said, at that public hearing, if you didn't want to speak, you could send a letter, and they would read it. So instead of going to the commissioners, sending it to Main Prairie Township is a very, very good thing to do. I think it's important. As you can see, we got a lot of people here tonight. Some people are probably for it, some people are against it. But we got a lot of people here that are concerned about it enough to show up tonight, that sending letters to the Main Prairie Township, to that committee, and letting them know we still have concerns about this and we need to address them.
And mention Fairhaven Township. The site plan that we had up with the 2.5 acres of building, you could hit a golf ball easily into Fairhaven Township from there. It was literally 50 yards. And one of the farms that we think he has his eyes on is entirely in Fairhaven Township.
So even to send letters to Fairhaven Township as well.
Yeah, Linden Township.
Yeah.
Really, Mike had talked, and we're going to wrap this up and have Chris, from our guest speaker, in just a second, but in doing the research, agribusiness and agri-corporations have really gotten control of the state statutes and legislature. In 1998, up until 1998, a feedlot application of up to 300 animals was exempt from an environmental assessment study. Now it is 1,000 animal units. So from 1998, the lobbyists go back to the legislature and chisel this and chisel it and chisel it, and it's up to 1,000 animal units. You know, we are very pro-dairy in this area, but today in western Minnesota was the grand opening of an 8,800 cow dairy operation. One facility, 8,800 cows. So agribusiness will continue to chip away at the state ordinances, and they take away the ability of local people to ask for an environmental assessment. The ethanol industry has done the same thing. Right now, no governing body can request an environmental assessment if someone is going to locate an ethanol plant of up to 125 million gallons per year capacity. So right at the end of the driveway here, someone could propose to build an ethanol plant of that size. And that's roughly twice the size of the one in Atwater. I think it's in the 60 million gallon a year. So they're taking away the public's ability to ask for common sense environmental evaluation of these projects. And as Mike's saying, the township is really the first line of defense. So go to your township meetings and ask them to put ordinances in place. But again, have to be very careful not to hurt the family farmers that are here now. We appreciate their presence. Everybody on this committee grew up on the farm. We are all farmers at heart. But agriculture controlled by giant corporations based in North Dakota, that's an entirely different thing. I have no sympathy for that at all. So we'll let Mike finish up and introduce Chris.
Right now, there are 1,600 townships in the state of Minnesota, and 400 of them have passed ordinances that stop CAFOs from coming in. But like I said, we do not want to hurt. Yeah.
I have two questions. Do they run lights 24 hours a day on those feedlot operations?
Question is, do they run lights on the operation? I believe it was said that they would have security lights on the outside. I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of yard light or something. So.
And then my second question is related to, I assume that they're giving antibiotics to these animals, and that those antibiotics are running through that manure that's going to run into my
Second question was about antibiotics. Yes, they do run antibiotics. The pig absorbs 25% of the antibiotics, and the rest goes out into the manure, which would go out into the fields. Question?
What about the manure and stuff that Chris develops? What did they do with all that? It goes into a holding tank and then it goes in there and it goes what? Fields?
Well, the question is, what do they do with the manure? It's in the holding tanks, and his proposal was to spread that twice a year. And knife it, the state of Minnesota says you have to knife in pig manure, so it gets knifed into the ground. And I'm sure there's a lot of farmers that know about knifing. From my understanding, it goes about 6-8 inches underneath the topsoil. And I know the type of soil I am, you go that deep, you're into the sand already. So, on the 580 acres. On the 580 acres is where they'd spread it. It'd be twice a year, in the spring and the fall.
But doesn't St. Cloud also bring their waste out here? Do they do that every year?
The question is, does St. Cloud bring their waste out here? They do. I know they spread somewhere by Luxembourg. Hickmeyer's takes that. I don't know a lot about that. It's east of Fairhaven this year. I haven't researched that. Yeah. There's a lot of things that I did research, and there's some things that I haven't. We were fortunate enough to hook up with Chris Peterson. Chris is a farmer down in Iowa, and he's dealt with this before, and he has a lot more experience than I do. I'm going to turn it over to Chris.